Now, the fight for the future of Europe has entered a new phase, not only between those for and against the European Union, but also among EU supporters. There are competing versions and visions for what the EU should be in relation to itself and, of course, the rest of the world. Now, that competition is best represented by political leaders in France and Germany, two of EU's largest members, who say they are strongly committed to strengthening the EU. But how so exactly? For more on growing public disagreement in the French-German relationship, William Glucroft from our German partner DW joins us from Berlin. William, good afternoon. Tell us, what more is there to know about the rather unique positions of French and German politicians?
Well, the European Union has been the cornerstone of Emmanuel Macron. That's the French president's everything, really. His entire political career, becoming president, his campaign to become president, now as president, has always been focused on the European Union. And he has been hitting hard very publicly over the last 2 years of his presidency, trying to outline a future for a stronger, more centralized, more united European Union. And all that time, he's really been waiting for the German government to get on board with him, or at least present its version of its vision of the European Union. And most recently, we've seen an article appear in newspapers across the European Union, in all 28 member states, an article written by Emmanuel Macron that really outlined many of his positions. That is, a stronger union at a centralized level, at a European level, more common sharing of debt burdens, more EU finance, a common Eurozone, EU finance minister. These are not new proposals, but it was quite a media blitz. And he was really kind of egging on Germany to step up to the plate and respond, which they did, but might not be the way that Emmanuel Macron was hoping. He did not get a response from Chancellor Angela Merkel. He got a response from Chancellor Angela Merkel's party chief, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. It's a bit of a mouthful for some of your viewers, maybe, and also for us, so we go by her initials AKK. That's the head of Angela Merkel's conservative CDU party. And she wrote a responding article agreeing to some points of Emmanuel Macron, but really staking out a very different course for Germany.
How likely are we to see in the either distant or near future other countries starting to consider the question that occupied the British populace for many years before they voted on Brexit? How likely are we to see perhaps that mood replicating itself in other European countries?
Well, we see that mood across the EU. Right-wing populist movements and parties are polling very strongly in upcoming European parliamentary elections that are taking place in May. And that really is the backdrop to these competing newspaper articles between Emmanuel Macron and now over the weekend from Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer in a German newspaper. They make very clear that a future EU, a stronger EU, a revitalized EU is very, very important if they want to keep Eurosceptic populists at bay. Macron was able to defeat his populist movement in France in the presidential elections there in 2017, but they're giving him a run for his money at the European level for the upcoming elections in May, which will be his and his party's first time competing in these elections. And on the German side, you have also populists to contend with. The conservative CDU party, Angela Merkel's party, is not only competing with a populist movement on the European level, but also at state elections that are taking place this year. And they are in direct competition for the same voters that the conservatives rely on in Germany to win. So Macron took this as an opportunity to say, yes, Brexit has happened. We should see that as a wake-up call. We should see that as a warning sign. And what can we do to ensure that what happened in the UK doesn't spread across the EU and that EU leaders, EU supporters can really keep the European Union together?
Now, Angela Merkel, in terms of German politics, is, if you will, on her way out. Is that perhaps the reason why the party leader was the one who put her foot forward by putting out this article? And is it a sign that people cannot expect the same European Union position that Angela Merkel held to continue once she's no longer in the picture?
That is a very big and a very good question that people are asking here in Germany. There was some speculation that this was a chance to empower and embolden the woman perceived to be the successor to Angela Merkel. Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer is the head of her party and would likely step in to succeed Angela Merkel after 2021 or even earlier, which some of the CDU's own more conservative members called for in the last few days, that Angela Merkel should step down before the end of her term and hand the power over to Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. So we are seeing a shift in power and people starting to look beyond the Merkel era and what that might make Germany look like and might make the European Union look like. AKK, while an ally of Angela Merkel and Angela Merkel's pick for the head of the party, is still more conservative than Angela Merkel, both inside Germany and on the European Union level. So while the CDU and AKK are seeing eye to eye with Emmanuel Macron when it comes to standard conservative issues of security, of a stronger border, of a streamlined and more efficient way of processing asylum applications at the external border of the EU, when it comes to more social issues like sharing of debt burdens, common social security systems, and a common minimum wage. These are things that AKK has completely ruled out for Germany being on board with, which is interesting because, of course, the CDU doesn't rule alone in Germany. They rule with their Social Democrat partners, the SPD, and the SPD has said, we are not on board with a lot of the things that AKK has come out with saying, which means there is no government agreement on what the Germans' position is on the future of the EU.
Right. Well, here's how I'd like us to wrap up. Let's talk about how all of this affects Africa. First of all, are these two leaders thinking of Africa? How is Africa positioned in their minds as they present these positions? And secondly, how should Africa position themselves as they look at this emerging future of the EU? What are some of the things Africa should be thinking about in terms of getting themselves in the right position to take advantage of however the EU ends up looking like once the dust settles?
Well, it's actually very interesting. These two articles, these competing articles, Macron's last week and AKK's this week, they're very inward focused, of course. They're speaking to a European audience. And of course, they mention the United States and China and other major world powers. They don't mention a lot about the world, but they do mention one region, that is Africa. Africa is specifically mentioned in both of these articles. Macron says that there needs to be more investment with African partners in education, especially education for girls, more research and development support, and more of a partnership economically speaking. AKK also mentioned Africa as important for the EU going forward.